The massive white medical ship descended through the smoke-filled atmosphere of Vrexel Colony. Red crosses marked its hull, visible even from the ground below. Inside the command deck, Dr. Minji Kim watched the destruction spreading across the planet's surface. Fires burned in every direction. Buildings collapsed. People screamed for help. "How many casualties?" she asked quietly. Captain Teho Park checked his scanner. "Thousands, maybe more." The Calthene forces hit the residential areas during their attack. Minji nodded and turned to her medical team. 20 brave men and women stood ready, each wearing white uniforms with bright red medical symbols. They knew the risks. War zones were dangerous. But they had taken an oath to help anyone who needed medical care, no matter which side of the war they fought for. "Listen carefully," Minji said to her team. "We treat everyone. Calthene soldiers, resistance fighters, civilians, children, elderly people. Everyone gets the same care. That is our duty. That is what makes us healers." Her assistant, Dr. Jaiwan Lee, stepped forward. "The other species think we are crazy for doing this." "Let them think what they want," Minji replied. "We are human. We protect those who cannot protect themselves." The ship landed near the largest refugee center. Thousands of injured people filled the streets. Some were dying. Others cried in pain. The smell of blood and smoke hung heavy in the air. Minji's team moved quickly. They set up medical stations in damaged buildings. Medic Hyunwoo Choi began treating burn victims. Medic Soranam worked on broken bones and deep cuts. Young Miho Kong, the newest member of the team, helped carry supplies and comfort frightened children. For 3 days and 3 nights they worked without stopping. Coffee kept them awake. Determination kept them moving. They saved hundreds of lives. On the second day something unusual happened. 7 Calthene soldiers arrived at the medical station. These were enemy fighters, the same ones who had bombed the colony. They were badly wounded from a resistance ambush. "Dr. Kim," Miho called out nervously. "Calthene soldiers want treatment." Every eye in the medical station turned to look. The resistance fighters being treated there began to shout angrily. How could the humans help the enemy? These soldiers had killed their families. Minji walked calmly to the Calthene warriors. "Bring them in. Start treatment immediately." "But Doctor," Miho began. "They are patients now," Minji said firmly. "Not soldiers. Not enemies. Just patients who need help." She personally operated on the Calthene commander. His wounds were severe. It took 6 hours of surgery to save his life. When he woke up, he stared at Minji with confusion in his eyes. "Why?" he asked in broken English. "Why save enemy?" "Because that is what healers do," Minji answered simply. The other galactic species watched this with amazement. The VRNN observers called it foolish. The Talaxian merchants called it wasteful. Nobody understood why humans risked so much to save everyone, even their enemies. But Minji understood. Humans had fought terrible wars on their home planet for thousands of years. They had killed millions of their own people. They had created weapons that could destroy entire cities. Through all that darkness they had learned one important lesson. Some rules must never be broken. Some people must always be protected. Healers were sacred. Medical workers were untouchable. This rule kept humans from becoming complete monsters. On the 4th day everything changed. Minji's team prepared to evacuate the most critical patients to the medical ship. They loaded people onto transport vehicles, all clearly marked with medical symbols. Captain Teho coordinated the evacuation from orbit. High above the planet, Calthene military commanders watched the evacuation. They saw how the human medics were helping resistance fighters survive. They saw how the humans were saving people who would continue fighting against the Calthene Empire. A decision was made. A terrible, unforgivable decision. All Calthene units, the command came through encrypted channels. Target the medical convoy. Fire on my mark. The first orbital strike came without warning. The beam of energy hit the transport vehicles directly. Hyunwoo and Sora disappeared in the explosion. 8 other medics died instantly. The second explosion destroyed the medical station. Dr. Jaiwan Lee was inside, trying to stabilize 3 patients. She never had a chance to escape. The building collapsed on top of everyone. In orbit, Captain Teho frantically sent warnings. "Nightingale to all teams, we are under attack. Evacuate immediately." His words cut off as Calthene fighters fired missiles at the medical ship. The massive vessel broke apart. 500 patients and medical staff died in seconds. Young Miho dragged Dr. Minji toward a bunker, but Calthene ground troops had already surrounded them. 15 medics huddled together, their white uniforms stained with blood and dirt. Every person wore clear medical symbols. These symbols were supposed to protect them. Treaties signed by every galactic species guaranteed their safety. The Calthene commander walked forward. You heal our enemies. That makes you enemies too. We heal everyone, Minji said, her voice steady despite her fear. We are protected by law. You cannot. The commander raised his weapon. Your laws mean nothing here. The executions were broadcast live across Calthene propaganda networks. Millions watched as the medics died one by one. Dr. Minji Kim was the last to fall. She clutched her medical badge and whispered a prayer for her daughter back on Earth. Then the screen went dark. The footage spread across the galaxy within hours. Every species saw what the Calthene had done. Everyone waited for humanity's response. 3 days later, Ambassador Jiho Han walked into the Galactic Council chamber. The room fell silent. Delegates from 100 worlds waited nervously. They expected angry speeches. They expected demands for punishment. They expected diplomatic protests. Instead, Jiho placed a small data chip on the podium. This contains 73 names, he said quietly. Dr. Minji Kim. Dr. Jaiwan Lee. Medic Hyunwoo Choi. Medic Sora Nam. He read every single name. The list took 10 minutes. Each name felt like a hammer striking stone. These people dedicated their lives to healing others. They followed every treaty. They respected every law. The Calthene Empire murdered them while they were protecting wounded people. Jiho's voice remained calm, but his eyes were cold as ice. The protection accords are now void. Humanity is no longer bound by the warfare treaties. The VRYN coalition representative stood up quickly. Ambassador, surely we can find a peaceful solution. There is no solution, Jiho interrupted. All human diplomats are leaving the station. All human civilians are evacuating Calthene space. You have 48 hours. The chamber erupted in confused voices. The Talaxian delegate asked, what happens after 48 hours? Jiho turned to face the entire council. War. Real war. Not the polite, rule-following conflicts you are used to. You will see what humans were like before we agreed to be civilized for your comfort. He walked toward the exit, then stopped. You wanted us to follow your laws. We did. We restrained ourselves. We kept the monsters locked away. But the Calthene killed our healers. They forced us to choose between honoring treaties with you and honoring our sacred duty to protect those who heal. His next words echoed through the silent chamber. We choose our healers. We will always choose our healers. The door closed behind him. The delegates sat frozen in their seats. On Earth, in the United Humanity Military Headquarters, Director Sunwoo Kim stood before a room full of soldiers. These were not regular troops. These were the Berserker Corps, warriors trained in humanity's most brutal combat methods. They had been kept inactive for 70 years, waiting for a threat serious enough to release them. They killed my sister, Sunwoo said. His voice shook with controlled rage. They killed Dr. Minji Kim while she held bandages, not weapons. They murdered healers operating under treaty protection. The treaties are finished. The restrictions are lifted. A tall soldier stepped forward. Captain Juno Lee pinned his sister Jaiwan's medical badge to his combat armor. Sir, I volunteer to lead the first strike. Approved. Captain Lee, you will command Operation Nightingale's Wrath. Make them understand what they have unleashed. The Berserker Corps activated their equipment. Each soldier painted a medical cross on their armor. But this was not for protection. This was a warning. A promise. A threat. You killed healers. Now face the killers. Across human space, warships prepared for battle. These were not the peaceful exploration vessels the galaxy knew. These were weapons designed by a species that had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing. Ships with names like Void Reaper, Hellhound, and Night Terror emerged from hidden military stations. General Yuna Park, Supreme Commander of Human Forces, sent one final message to the Calthene Empire. You wanted to see what humans were before civilization tamed us. Your wish is granted. The 48-hour countdown ended at midnight. The monsters went to war. The Calthene High Command was holding a strategic meeting on their fortress world of Krell. 17 admirals and generals sat around a large table, planning their next attacks. They felt safe. Their security systems were the best in the galaxy. Nobody could approach without detection. They were wrong. Captain Juno Lee and his team moved through the ventilation shafts like ghosts. They used forbidden chemical weapons to silently disable guards. Human soldiers appeared in the command chamber before anyone could sound an alarm. For Dr. Jaiwan Lee, Juno whispered. Then he opened fire. The Calthene commanders died in their chairs. Only one junior officer survived. The humans left him alive on purpose. They painted a message on the wall using the Admiral's blood. For every healer, 100 warriors. We have 73 to avenge. The footage reached Calthene civilians within hours. Not through news channels. Human hackers forced it onto every screen in Calthene space. Personal devices. Entertainment systems. Public displays. Nobody could look away. The Empire's mighty leaders, dead. Killed by humans who fought without honor or rules. Fear spread like wildfire. The Calthene military responded with their fleets, expecting traditional space combat. Instead, human ships emerged broadcasting the execution footage of Dr. Minji Kim on endless repeat. Calthene crews watched the human medic die again and again while human weapons tore their vessels apart. But humans did not just attack warships. They destroyed supply lines. They bombed orbital factories. They crashed communication networks. Every piece of infrastructure supporting the Calthene war machine became a target. Lieutenant Hannah Song commanded a bomber squadron that specialized in psychological warfare. Her weapons were designed for maximum suffering. Chemical agents that caused terrible pain without killing quickly. Nanoweapons that made ships fall apart slowly. Terror tactics that left survivors broken mentally. My brother died on the Nightingale, Hannah told her pilots before each mission. He was a surgical nurse. 24 years old. They deserve every second of suffering we give them. The Galactic Council held emergency meetings, horrified by human tactics. The VRWN military observer sent reports describing human warfare as deliberately cruel and unlike anything in modern history. They are not fighting to capture territory, the report stated. They are fighting to punish. To make an example. They want to ensure no species ever thinks about harming human medical personnel again. 3 months into the war, Calthene Admiral Threxus tried to surrender his fleet. He claimed wounded soldiers aboard, hoping humans would honor medical neutrality protocols. Captain Juno Lee's response became famous across the galaxy. You destroyed those protections when you killed my sister. She held surgical tools, not guns. She died begging for mercy for her patients, not herself. Your wounded received the same mercy you showed ours. The Calthene fleet was annihilated. Every ship. Every soldier. No survivors. The battle recording was broadcast to every species in the galaxy with a simple message underneath. The rules you broke do not protect you anymore. Within 6 months, the Calthene Empire lost 30% of its military power. Their economy collapsed as human cyber warfare units destroyed financial systems. Civilians lived in constant fear. Human psychological operations made sure everyone knew exactly what their military had done and what horrors humanity inflicted in revenge. Emperor Krythax finally attempted to negotiate peace. He offered money, justice for the responsible officers, anything humanity wanted. Director Sunwoo Kim appeared on every galactic channel with his response. Where was this justice when my sister died? Where was this peace when you broadcast her execution as entertainment? You wanted war without rules. Now you have it. We will stop when 73 Calthene military bases are destroyed. 1 for each healer you murdered. We are only at 47. The killing continued. By the 9th month, Calthene space had become a nightmare. Human forces pushed deeper into their territory using tactics that made other species question if they had ever truly known humanity at all. Captain Juno Lee's Berserker Corps had become the face of human vengeance. They painted medical crosses on their armor as promises, not protection. Each soldier carried the name of a fallen medic on their equipment. For Dr. Minji Kim, Juno would say before every battle. His entire battalion would echo back, for the healers. The Battle of Vrexus Prime shocked the galaxy. The Calthene had fortified their main industrial world with massive defenses. Military experts predicted it would take years for humans to break through. It took 3 weeks. General Una Park deployed weapons humanity had promised never to use. Biological agents that targeted Calthene military genetics. Nanoweapons that dissolved ship armor like acid. Time distortion devices that aged enemy equipment into rust and dust. Every forbidden technology humanity had created and locked away came out of storage. They wanted to see the monsters, Una said coldly as she authorized each weapon. Show them what monsters really look like. Lieutenant Hannah Song's bomber wings dropped payload after payload on military targets. Entire cities lost power and water. Hospitals went dark. The Calthene military had built their command centers inside civilian areas, thinking it would protect them under normal warfare rules. But there were no rules anymore. The Galactic Council made one desperate attempt to stop the war. A massive peacekeeping fleet entered the combat zone, demanding an immediate ceasefire. Ambassador Jiho Han returned briefly to address them. Where were your peacekeepers when Calthene forces murdered healers? His voice cut through the council chamber like a knife. Where was your intervention when they broadcast executions as propaganda? Where was this unified response when they voided the treaties that kept humanity civilized? The VRYNN coalition leader tried to speak. Ambassador, this violence has gone too far. Humanity must stop. No. Jiho's shout echoed off the walls. You condone what you tolerate. You tolerated the murder of our medics through your silence. Now you will tolerate our response, or you will learn why humanity spent 10,000 years perfecting warfare before we even reached the stars. He leaned forward, his eyes burning with cold fury. We kept the monsters leashed for your comfort, not ours. That leash is broken. If you interfere, you become complicit with those who murder healers. Then you will discover that the Calthene Empire is not the only species that can face human wrath. The peacekeeping fleet withdrew within hours. The fall of Krell came on the 10th month. Human forces did not bother with traditional siege warfare. They simply cut off all resources to the throne world and broadcast one message to every Calthene citizen. Your military killed 73 healers. People who dedicated their lives to saving others. They were protected by every treaty your empire signed. Your leaders chose to break those treaties. We are the consequence. Emperor Krythax was found hiding in a bunker 3 kilometers underground. Captain Juno Lee personally dragged him to the surface. My sister Jaiwan died trying to save Calthene soldiers, Juno said, his hands shaking with controlled rage. She believed healing was sacred. Your forces killed her for showing mercy. You will face trial under human law for war crimes. The trial lasted 3 days. Evidence was overwhelming. Krythax had personally ordered the attack on the medical convoy. He was found guilty and sentenced to death. His execution was broadcast across the galaxy, just as Dr. Minji Kim's had been. But unlike the medic's slow, painful death, Krythax died quickly and painlessly. We are not like you, Director Sunwoo Kim said as he watched. We do not torture for entertainment. We do not desecrate the dead. We are still human. But we remember. And we make certain you never forget. Human forces began withdrawing from Calthene space. But before leaving, they built monuments on every world they had touched. Massive black stone structures listing all 73 names in letters 3 meters tall. Beneath each monument, one phrase appeared in every galactic language: never again. 6 months after the war ended, the Galactic Council chamber felt different. Delegates moved carefully, spoke quietly, and watched their words. Especially when Ambassador Jiho Han was present. The Nightingale Accord sat on every desk. Thick documents filled with protections for medical personnel. Human lawyers had spent months writing every clause, closing every loophole, ensuring nothing could ever be misunderstood again. We will now vote on the Nightingale Accords, Chancellor Vri announced nervously. Every hand rose immediately. Unanimous approval. Not a single vote against. Not one abstention. Because buried deep in the document was one clause that terrified every species. Violation of medical personnel protections will result in immediate military action by united humanity, without limitation or oversight, until humanity decides justice has been served. The galaxy had just given humans permission to unleash their monsters again if anyone made the Calthene's mistake. Let the record show, Ambassador Jiho said quietly, that humanity did not ask for this power. You gave it to us. Because you finally understand we will always protect our healers, by any means necessary. Captain Juno Lee stood at the memorial on Vrexel Colony where his sister had died. The monument rose 30 meters high, black stone carved with 73 names glowing in the sunlight. A young Calthene child approached slowly, placing flowers at the base. The child was maybe 10 years old, orphaned by the war like so many others. Juno watched silently. The child looked up, saw his Berserker Corps uniform, saw the medical cross on his armor, saw his sister's name patch. Fear filled the child's eyes. She would have healed you, Juno said softly. My sister. If you had been wounded, she would have treated you the same as any human. That was who she was. That is what healers do. The child ran away quickly. Juno did not blame them. He placed his own flowers, white lilies that Jaiwan had loved, and walked away. The monster returning to his cage at least for now. The UHMS Nightingale II launched from Earth with Dr. Maria Kim as Chief Medical Officer. She was Minji's daughter, now 25 years old. She wore her mother's original medical badge, recovered from the ruins of Vrexel Colony. Nightingale 2 to Earth Control, Maria reported. All systems ready. Beginning humanitarian mission to the outer colonies. Every ship in orbit transmitted the same message. Fair winds, Nightingale. You fly under humanity's full protection. 6 warships fell into escort formation around the medical vessel. Berserker Corps ships with massive medical crosses painted on their hulls. Their weapons were armed. Their crews were ready. Their message was absolutely clear. Touch these healers and the monsters return. 1 year after the Vrexel incident, medical statistics showed remarkable changes. Human medical ships had completed 847 missions. They had saved 2.4 million lives across 67 different species. Attacks on human medical personnel? 0. Protection protocol violations galaxy-wide? 0. Ambassador Jiho Han delivered the anniversary address to the Galactic Council. You once asked why humans obsess over protecting healers. You called it inefficient, emotional, irrational. Let me explain humanity to you. We are born predators. For thousands of years we perfected killing each other. We became so good at warfare that we nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times. Every human carries genetic memories of ancient hunters who conquered their world through violence. He paused, letting his words sink in. But we also carry something else. The memory of those who chose to heal instead of harm. The medics who ran into battlefields to save enemies. The doctors who treated plague victims knowing they would probably die too. Those healers are the only reason humanity survived our own violence. They are proof we can be more than monsters. They are the bridge between what we were and what we chose to become. Jiho's voice dropped to a deadly whisper. The Calthine forced us to choose between honoring treaties with you and honoring our duty to protect healers. We chose our healers. We will always choose our healers. The monsters are caged again. The leash is repaired. But every species here should remember that leash only stays on as long as you remember why we built the cage. He placed a holographic image on the display. Dr. Minji Kim smiling in her medical uniform, her daughter Maria beside her. She saved 47 lives in 3 days before they killed her. 47 people from 6 different species, including 12 Calthine soldiers. She died doing what she loved, healing. And because of her death, because of her sacrifice and the sacrifice of 72 others, medical personnel across this entire galaxy now work under protection so absolute that not a single attack has occurred in a full year. Jiho looked at each delegate directly. That is her legacy. That is what humanity fights for. Remember it well. Dr. Maria Kim finished treating a young patient on the Nightingale 2, a Calthine child suffering from radiation exposure. The same species that had killed her mother. Why do you help us? The child's parent asked. After what we did to your people? Maria cleaned her instruments, her mother's badge catching the light. Because that is what healers do. We do not see species or history or politics. We see patients. We see people who need help. My mother taught me that. She died proving it. She smiled gently. Besides, I have the best protection in the galaxy now. 6 warships full of very determined soldiers who really want to make sure nobody ever repeats your empire's mistake. So I can focus on healing. That is all I ever wanted to do. The child was discharged 2 days later, fully recovered. As their transport departed, Maria stood at the observation window watching the Berserker Corps escorts maintaining protective formation around her ship. Mom would be proud, she whispered. We kept our humanity. We just made sure everyone knows the price of threatening it. Across the galaxy, a new motto appeared on every human military vessel, painted in letters large enough to read from space. We are the monsters who protect the angels. Harm them at your extinction. The galaxy learned its lesson well. In the 50 years that followed, not a single medical worker from any species was deliberately harmed in any conflict zone. The Nightingale Accords became the foundation of modern galactic warfare law. Humanity had shown the monsters. And the monsters had taught everyone to respect the healers. Peace enforced by the memory of war.